Franklin State Forest. That's sort of the landscape. This is the boundary of the watershed, where we came in here and we're walking around this. We're right here right now, and we're going to cut down through to look at this plot, and then we're going to walk here, and this is where my students are working right now. But this isn't this. So every drop of water that drops into that outlined area comes out the base here, Cross Creek, and then goes into the broader creek system down below. This is actually cove habitat. But what you can see up here, this is on top of the plateau. So this forest is upland forest. Sandstone underlies this soil. So all the soil here is drought prone, pretty low pH, and it's very sandy and typical of the upland forests of the plateau, the surface of the plateau. So we have these plots represent different slope aspect, different parts of the overall watershed drainage there. So we believe they're pretty representative of the forests that are found within the watershed, but also the forests that are found within the upland forests that Franklin State Forest contains. So that's a nice sample there. So we can look at this plot here. So each of these plots, we've mapped every tree down to the sapling. So whoops. Every tree down to the sapling level, and we've been tracking canopy trees and trees over 3 centimeters since the 1970s, but we've added a greater dimension of forest structure by including saplings and seedlings in recent years. So let me show you. All right, so this is what the map. These are 2 hectares. A hectare is about 2 acres, a little more. And so this is about almost 5 acres of forest. And each of these is a 10 by 10 plot. So what you're seeing there in the colors are basically the trees of that 10 by 10. Each one is given a different color to differentiate them. So as we do the trees, we know we can track one plot from another. So as you zoom in here, you can start to see this is a 10 by 10 square right here. Each of the trees are identified. So this is a large black oak, and the larger the diameter, the bigger the tree. Individual smaller saplings and small trees are the smaller dots. And each code represents a species. So this is a big cluster, for example, of sassafras in the forest. And sassafras is clonal. It's one of the things that we're actually looking at. We're looking at the genetics of sassafras in forests. This could be an ancient clone going way back in time.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a huge amount of work to map these things. And every 10 years we do this, and it gives us great insight. So, in a forest that doesn't change that much over the, a 5-10 year period, it really takes 40-50 years in order to really capture the overall dynamics of what's happening here. And one of the things we're learning from this forest is that it's an old growth forest, so it's undergoing the natural processes of births and deaths. And that natural process of, sort of the typical disturbance regime of trees blowing down with storms and such is enough to maintain the diversity over time. And we haven't analyzed this year's data, but what we're seeing changes, there's no question, like we're seeing throughout the eastern deciduous forest. So for example, dogwoods have come and gone, and they're actually now coming back. So we've documented that. So in the 1970s, there were plenty of dogwoods in there. The dogwood blight came in, wiped them out, and now they're starting to reappear in the forest. So when you have 50 years of data like that, you can see an entire change dynamic, before your eyes if you've been continually mapping. It's pretty rare, by the way, that anyone does these long-term studies, right? You have to have a legacy built up of people willing to pass the baton. And I inherited this, and I've passed this on to my students, and my students now are professors who are having their students do this work, and it's that's a pretty cool thing in and of itself. But that's what it takes, right, to sustain this kind of long-term work. Think about the average PhD project, which is where most research gets done in this country by PhD students. It's a 5-year study, right? Well, that 5 years in this forest is nothing. It's just nothing. It can tell you nothing other than the static condition of the forest. You want to know about change, And if the past, present, and future, you have to have this big, broad stretch of time.